One day, on an August morning, the sky suddenly became gloomy, the wind began to blow strongly and dark clouds rolled in the sky. Signs of an approaching storm. Min, a famous sawyer in the village, and his team prepared themselves to face the storm. They had experienced many storms before, but each storm brought new challenges and dangers. As the storm began to hit, strong winds blew through the village, carrying with them terrifying screeches. The houses shook violently under the force of nature. Then suddenly, a loud explosion startled the whole village. A huge old tree was knocked down by the storm, collapsing on the roof of Mrs. Han's house, an old woman living alone in an old house. Min and his team quickly received a distress call. Without hesitation, he ordered the whole team to gather at the scene of the accident. Trucks loaded with saws, ropes, and other necessary tools quickly rolled out. When they arrived, they found Mrs. Han's house severely damaged by the old tree, with the roof broken and the walls cracked. Mrs. Han stood trembling outside, her eyes filled with tears of fear. Min walked over, put his hand on her shoulder and reassured her, "It's okay, Mrs. Han, we will handle this. Don't worry." Min and his team began to make a plan. First, they had to determine where to saw to avoid further damage to the house. They set up tall ladders, tied ropes around the tree trunk to control the direction of the branches when sawing. The sound of chainsaws began to ring out, mixed with the howling wind and rain hitting the corrugated iron roof. Min stood on the tree, sawing the largest branches first. With his technique and extensive experience, he knew where to start sawing and how to make the branches fall in the safest way. The teammates below were ready to catch the branches and move them away from the house. Every time a large branch was cut down, Mrs. Han breathed a sigh of relief. The storm was not over yet, but Min and his team did not rest. They knew that if they did not act quickly, Mrs. Han's house could be completely destroyed. After the large branches were removed, Min moved to the main trunk. This was the hardest part, because the tree trunk was very large and heavy. Min had to use his longest chainsaw to cut through the thick trunk. Min sawed a line down the middle of the trunk, then carefully sawed additional lines to easily control the direction of the tree's fall. The teammates below watched tensely, ready to respond if any unexpected situations occurred. Sweat beaded on Min's forehead, but he remained focused. Finally, with a loud crack, the tree trunk began to fall. Thanks to Min's precise control, the tree fell safely, causing no further damage to the house. When the tree finally rested on the ground, the whole team breathed a sigh of relief. They began to break the tree into smaller pieces for easier transport back to the lumber yard. The trucks rolled again, carrying heavy logs. Min returned to Mrs. Han's house, smiling. "It's done, Mrs. Han, your house is safe." Mrs. Han was moved, holding Min's hand tightly. "Thank you, kids, if it weren't for you, I don't know what would have happened to me." Mr. Min and his team are not only skilled sawyers, but also heroes in the hearts of the villagers. They are always ready to face dangers to protect and help the community. The storm eventually passed, the sky was clear and peaceful again. But in the hearts of Mrs. Han and the villagers, the image of Mr. Min and his team will forever be engraved, as brave warriors facing nature to protect a peaceful life.